Okay, guys, welcome back to the Let's Get Freaky podcast. Got a very exciting guest tonight. We've got Greg Ogles with us. How are you, my brother? Thank you so much for being here, man.
Doing well, brother. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. I've been looking forward to talking to you. You are a filmmaker for Relic Films Media, which is really cool. You look into topics like cryptids and the paranormal, which is what we absolutely love here at Let's Get Freaky. You're a podcaster, researcher. What have I missed, man? Is there anything I've missed?
I'm also an engineer.
An engineer as well. That's
Yeah,
cool.
that's my day job.
Awesome, man.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
it all comes in handy, brother. And you are and you are based in Alabama. Is that
I
correct?
am. That is the
Awesome.
southern United States, where we speak the King's English down here.
Yes, sir. A
Mhm.
lot of Bigfoot activity in your area. Is it you get a
Well,
lot?
there is more than what somebody would think. Typical when it comes to Bigfoot activity, a lot of people think immediately the Pacific Northwest, in Northwest United States, Alaska, and Canada. Those areas. However, the southern United States has a long history of Bigfoot activity. And that's essentially what got, excuse me, what got me into doing the research and filming myself is, you, just one day I decided to get off the couch instead of just watching all the other shows. And you would just be surprised at the number of big or how much Bigfoot activity there is here in the South. You would be really surprised.
Mhm. Well, these things appear all over North America and even Europe as well. These things are reported all over Europe, even in the UK. There's sightings, there's people that claim to see these creatures. They're everywhere.
Hmm.
In history, they go way back. These creatures, and that's what I find
Absolutely.
so interesting about the cryptids in general, is that a lot of the time there's a different name. Even in North America, you have different names for these creatures, but they're they're ultimately describing the same thing. And I
Hmm.
find that that's so interesting that they appear in every culture all around the world, going back hundreds of years to this present day.
Hmm. Going back, I speak of the filmmaking, going back to my first film, it's called The Legend of the Downey Booger. And it was an old Alabama legend from the 1800s.
Ah,
Yeah, and the way it goes is these teenagers was coming home from a dance one night, and they were on horseback, and this tall, hairy, wild man like stepped out into the trail in front of them. Terrified the horses. They couldn't go any further. They had to find another long way home. Uh, it happened again with a moonshiner. Long story short, and the moonshiner actually shot the creature and then went to the sheriff and they formed a posse and they tracked it and went to a cliff and uh, they presumed that the creature fell off the cliff and then died or met its demise. So that beget the legend of the Downey Booger because the two kids were the Downey brothers, right? And in the South, everybody called weird things like that boogers. And that's where the term boogeyman came from, So, they probably use that term for other cryptids as well. I mean, it could have been a rake or all these other cryptids that are out there, and they would still use the term booger. It's one term for everything. One term catches all, booger. But
I quite like that though. I quite like booger.
yeah, yeah.
Booger.
Yeah, it was something it's quite unique to the South,
Hmm.
and a lot of people around even around the United States are like, Booger. I mean, the things in your nose." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no,
Not that kind of
not
booger.
those things. No, not that kind of booger. They're not hanging out in those caves. They hang out in other caves. But that's it's something that's I don't know, it's just really unique to the South, and it was this old legend that I didn't want to see die,
Hmm.
So we investigated this legend, and we went to right where the source was. We went to it's just small Winston counties where the legend happened. We went there, and I mean, right off the bat, we started having activity, and there's still activity there today. Still activity there.
Interesting.
Yes.
In the legend, in the stories that you heard, how did they describe the creature looking? Because I know the
Well,
Bigfoot varies.
Mhm. Yeah, it does. It does. Uh, they described it as kind of tall and lanky, um, uh, but completely covered in hair, but looking more like a man, right? And that's really typical of the descriptions that we have here, particularly in the South. They look more like a man than they do like an ape, you know.
Hmm.
But the facial descriptions are always like that. They have like a real short nose and it's kind of wide snout, real long, real big mouth, but no, very little lips. You know,
Hmm.
eyes a little bit further apart. Kind of this brow ridge that kind of protrudes out. It really describing what I would think is a Neanderthal, sort of. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Is it possible in some cases these things are an offshoot of Neanderthal, do you think? Possible.
well, anything's possible.
Hmm.
I don't think we really know enough about them to know exactly what they are. However, I do know they exist 100%. I'm a knower.
Let's
I'm not a
go.
believer.
Yeah.
I'm a knower. So just as sure as we're sitting here talking, I know these things exist. But I will say this: when I first started out, I thought I was, okay. A little bit about me. I'm come from an engineering background, and part of my job was to investigate very complex automobile crashes. And I would put together pieces of, evidence and pieces of a puzzle and put together the big picture to try to find out the true nature of the crash, what really caused it, right? And I would do these on real complex ones. They would take a while to do, and you would approach it much like a police officer would do a crime investigation, right?
Hmm.
So you would use a lot of the same tools, and I brought a lot of those same tools into researching Bigfoot hunting. And I thought when I first started out, I thought these things, it's just some kind of wood ape, right? And they're going to mess up. They're going to leave evidence behind, and I'm going to put together this picture about what they are, where they are, why they are, all these other questions. And it didn't do anything to deter my opinion on my first outings, because on our first outing, we were in the woods. We were deep in the woods, and once we started actually investigating, filming, trekking around, we came across this small pond, and there was these footprints that came down from a little knoll down to the pond, and halfway across the little pond, and then back out into the woods. And now this was February, and even here in the south of United States, it gets very cold in February. Like. Let's see, put it in centigrade, it would be in in the negatives, probably -10
Hmm.
centigrade. Okay. So we're talking below freezing, right? And it was below freezing this day, and the tracks were rather fresh. And I'm like, man, there's nothing to this. What is all these Bigfoot hunters doing? I mean, they're clowns. Of course, that was the arrogant engineer in me, right? Okay, well, and I did all this measuring, and we filmed this, and I'm like, hey, there's nothing to this, and uh, sure enough, about a quarter mile away in a field, we found some more trackway. So we found another trackway, but the tracks were identical. They were like 16 inches long and 7 inches wide. At the pond, there was the gate or the gap between footsteps was 5.5 feet, and it was pretty consistent. So that's a long stride.
Hmm. That's a big creature. Yeah.
It is. It was. That's a big creature. That's a big boy.
Hmm.
But however, when we went to the field, the stride distance increased between 8.5 and 9 feet between footsteps. And they were a shade deeper, just a hair deeper than they were at the pond. And the soil conditions were roughly the same. not really softer or not really harder. Uh, so we thought, well, it's the stride is longer, it's a little bit deeper. However, the dimensions are exactly the same, so we thought it was the same individual, right? Um, so we're like, hey, it was probably running, right? So that would account for the longer stride. What was strange about that particular trackway was that they stopped in the middle of the field and didn't go anywhere, right? So that was one of the first pieces of a puzzle that was an anomaly, and I kind of just shelved it. Right, and I was like, okay, I don't know what the soul conditions were the same, everything was the same. There was no real reason for it to just stop unless it jumped up into a helicopter or something. I don't know. Um, and we found all kinds of fabulous evidence that day. And again, I thought there was nothing to this, right? Until I started to go back and look at the footage myself. And I was like, oh my God, nobody's going to see that. Nobody, because that was horrible. It was terrible. My camera presence was just like you would think an engineer would be, talking to other engineers. Very dry, just very monotone. It was just awful. And I was like, oh my God, there's a little bit more to this than I thought, right? So I had to go back to the drawing board and learn a little bit of a camera presence and do all this other stuff that people actually take classes for.
Mhm.
And I was at the disadvantage of not having to go to all of that. I was at an analytical school, not the theatrics. Um, so I had to go and learn all that and present things in a more of an entertaining way, but also an informative way. So you got to kind of blend the two, right?
Mhm.
Um, and two, having the experience that I do now, I would have done a lot of things differently going in that first film, particularly that first evidence, because I have never found the physical evidence like that again.
Interesting.
I have not found that kind of evidence again. It was like all over the place at one time, right? I was
Mhm.
like, man, there's nothing to this. Ugh, I just didn't know how lucky that day was.
Wow.
I really didn't know how lucky. But we did come away with a footprint cast and a handprint cast, and we found some other footage that was just phenomenal. Like we've got the forestry department put up these 4x4 posts that had these little houses that bats live in, right? In the forest. And we found these fingerprints that was on that 4x4 post. Normal people can't reach around a 4x4 post. They're big.
Mhm.
Well, what we found was that there were four fingerprints, like on the front knuckles, and then there was a thumbprint on the same face of that 4x4. In other words, something had a big enough hand to reach all the way around that thing, and what
Whoa.
and what we thought we was doing is just reaching up into those bat houses and pulling them bats out and eating them. That's what we kind of got out of that. So something had a gigantic hand, absolutely enormous hand. Um, but where you would think the thumb would be, like if you were reaching around something, the thumb's more up here where the index finger was.
Mhm.
It was more down here where the pinky was. So that was another physical anomaly that I was like, well, okay, that's something else I need to shelve. But when we actually started looking at the handprint, which my buddy thought was a footprint for a long time, and I was started looking at it in the light and started looking in the shade. And I'm, dude, that's not a footprint. That's a handprint. But it actually shows the thumb is much further down on the hand than ours is.
Interesting.
Yeah, that started my journey, and you know, the footprints just suddenly ending. Um, that got me wondering, right? Because that's not normal. And you know, we encountered lots of other things that weren't Bigfoot. Once we really got into researching and staying out into the woods, you know, like multiple weekends, staying, for long periods of time, right? And one of the first things that I encountered um, was orbs, was these little balls of light that just travel through the woods, seemingly with intelligence. Um, and I'm going to be honest, I thought I was seeing things at first, right? Um, but because my buddy couldn't see them, I could see them, but my buddy couldn't, which I thought was strange,
Yeah,
right?
that's interesting. Yeah.
hmm And eventually, we had this other woman to join our group. Her name was Janice. Um, and she was able to see the orbs when they came around, but still, my buddy Brent could not. And this goes, and I'm like, what are these orb things? And they would really act with intelligence. Sometimes they would start off, they would be like little wisps of light. We call them fairy lights. Don't know what they are, but we just call them that as a convenient term when they're real quick and wispy.
Hmm.
But a lot of times they're very sustained. They get there and they just stay with you, right? Um, so we didn't know what these things were, but one thing that we do know is that they're intelligent. They move with intelligence. They respond to stimuli. They'll come up to you and sometimes they'll hang out with you for hours, absolutely hours.
Wow.
You know, uh, we've had them like to hang out with us so long, and we get tired. It gets like 3 in the morning, and we're like, okay, dude, going back to camp. You hang out if you want to, and then we'll be walking back toward our tents, and here they come. They're following us. So that's happened quite
Wow.
often.
Have you
Yeah,
managed
that's
to get that on camera?
oh, we do absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, we have the orbs on camera. My latest film called The Vanished.
Hmm.
Um, it I mean, I have a full spectrum camera, and we're filming an encounter that lasts half an hour or so, and it gets so cold that we can't stand being out there anymore.
Hmm.
So in the Vanished, there's you get to see in color what these things look like, and the
Wow.
orbs there were green. Okay, so they but that's an amazing piece of footage. Also, in the first film, The Legend of the Downey Booger. Now, the technology wasn't like what we have today when we did it. However, we did rent because we wasn't catching anything on night vision. I was starting to get weary because we were a couple of years into filming, right? And I was just getting weary. I'm tired. I'm like, look, let's just get something on camera. These orbs, we see them all the time. Let's try to capture these orbs, right? So we went out and rented a real high-end camera with passive. It was passive recording. There was no light projection at all, right? So we're out and right on cue, this orb comes out and it's staying around with us all night, and we actually have a lot of interaction that night. But if and I'll say this, anybody that's been a researcher in the paranormal field, you're going to experience equipment failure, battery drain,
Hmm.
just, memory failure on cards. That was going on all night long with
This is
us.
so common for paranormal
Very
investigators.
common,
Yeah.
extremely common. And later on, I've got I've got like physical evidence of what I think that is, but I'll get to that later.
Interesting.
Uh, but we were having lots of activity that night, and like on my thermal imaging, I had this thing kind of crawling down to us, and it got to a log, pushed up on a log, and the freaking thing just vanished, just poof, gone. And I'm like, how do you do that from thermal? That's just weird, right?
How big was
Uh,
that? How big was that that you caught?
well, it was hard to tell how big it was. Very, very, very difficult to tell how big it was. Uh, because again, the technology we were using at the time was not like it is today, and I didn't have a range finder on it. So it was very difficult to tell how far it was, and without knowing how far away it was, it's very difficult to say how big it was. But it was I will say this, it was at minimum human size, because you could see arms and legs on it. We thought it was another guy,
Whoa.
coming. So, we thought we're getting all this stuff on footage, right? Well, later we found out when we got back in post production, cameras failed right when these things were coming. However, this is one thing that we did catch on camera. We were filming the orb. Okay, it's this little ball, and this one was blue. You feel it, blue white sort of. I would say white with a blue hue. That's more accurate. Okay, so we're filming this thing, right? Oh, and there's a storm front coming, and it was like, we make sure that we've got the orb on camera, right? And we're like, yay, got something. We've got something, right? So in post production, uh, my buddy calls me. He's like, hey, 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 we've got something. I'm like, yeah, we've got the orb. He's like, no, 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 we've got something. So, and we didn't see this when we were there, but there's this thing crawling between us and the orb that the camera caught. The camera saw it. Now you can tell the shoulders, you can see the arms when, it's out like this. You can see the arms. You can see it like it's like it panics. It's like, oh crap, I'm on camera. And it starts to panic. It's like, don't know where to go, don't know where to go, and it like goes back and forth, and finally does go off screen. However, the camera sees it, and it's trying to focus on it. Now, no, now this is night. There's no cloud. I mean, there's no stars. There's clouds. There's no stars. There's no moon. Nothing. It's really dark. But the camera still sees this thing, and it's trying to focus on it. It really is. It's trying to focus, and you can see the camera just, what is this? What is this? And then as it's starting to panic, the orb behind it just goes berserk, just starts getting bright, dim, just going nuts. And the camera gives up focus on the crawler and then focuses in on the orb. And then, things in the foreground goes blurry as it crawls off, you know.
Whoa.
And if things weren't blurry in the foreground, you would have been able to see it as it turns sideways. But because it blurs, you can't really see the side profile of this thing. But you could see the front profile of it really good. And there's a few frames in there where you can see the face. And
Wow.
it's not a face that you want to really love. I will say that. Only a mother could love this face. It's really ugly
Whoa.
from my point of view. Really, really
What
ugly.
was it, like a human face or what
It
kind?
was it was like a human face, sort of. Now keep in mind it's really dark, but this camera is real high end, and it sees it, and it's trying to focus in on it. Um, And I think that the thing was like having its head down a lot, but at one time it holds its head up kind of in an angle, sort of like this. And you can see the eyes and the nose and the mouth. And
Whoa.
it's like I said, it's only in a frame or two of it. And it's really ugly. And sitting here calculating things, when we went back to revisit, this thing was probably like 30, 40 feet from us. And we did not know it was there. We
Whoa.
didn't know it was there. So the person that led us on to that location, I'm sitting here telling him about not necessarily what we had caught because I haven't revealed that, right? But he went on to volunteer information that There's a younger Bigfoot that's maybe not so smart there that he gets caught a lot trying to crawl up on people, particularly at camps. So
Wow.
yes, so I think we caught the youngster. I think we caught the dumb youngster on camera.
Wow, man.
So yeah.
Which you do hear very often when you talk to Bigfoot researchers like yourself. They say it's often the young ones that kind of
Hmm.
get caught. You know, that's the
Yeah.
perception. That's so interesting, man.
And
Whoa.
and I'm going to go ahead and say this. When we first started our film, I did not really talk to any other researchers or anything like that because the only thing you have in this field is your integrity. And
Hmm.
I wanted my opinions and my theories to be my own and not have a pre-biased when I went out to investigate things. So, like I said, I first started out thinking this thing was a wood ape. By the end of the film, I'm thinking, no, there's something more to this. We
Hmm.
should have seen that thing or heard it or something because it was so close to us, and we didn't. But the camera saw it. The camera did. Um,
Man.
so that really started to change my perception of things. And we had other things happen that was anecdotal. Of course, we had everything anecdotal Bigfoot we had happened to us. Rocks thrown at us, and the sticks hitting the trees,
Hmm.
particularly right when you get into the woods. So if you've got some researchers out there and you're like new to it, get you an audio recorder and turn it on before you even get out of your vehicle. Because a lot of times you'll catch that knock right when you get out of your car, right when you get out, that knock.
Interesting.
It'll go, "Doom." And sometimes that's the only one that you'll hear. So
Do you think there's like
yeah,
a symbol for themselves to like let them know that there's someone around, maybe?
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Interesting, man.
Yeah, I think so. Um, so another one of the strange things that would happen to us, and we didn't include this in the film because we didn't have it on video or audio, so we just didn't want, we wanted at first to stay away from just stories. We wanted evidence, right? So again, I was very analytical at the time and trying to prove it, right? So we
Hmm.
stayed away from these other weird things. One of the weirdest things that we happened was we rolled into that to our campsite one night, and I was at a bathhouse, taking a shower before bed, and Janice, she had just gotten there and she was still unpacking her truck, and she heard in my voice, she heard, "Hey, Janice," and it sounded like it came from up under her truck, and she thought, and now f- for your audience, I'm a bit of a trickster, prankster. And one of my mottos is if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. So
Absolutely.
when I'm out, when we're together with good friends, I'm cutting up and sometimes I do play pranks and tricks. And she thought I was playing a prank on her. And she kind of giggled at first and said, "Hey, Greg, But it happened again. And it was like,
Whoa.
"Hey, Janice." And something grabbed her ankle from up under the truck. And she was pissed then because she thought it's still me, right? Uh, Somehow I'm up under her truck, right? But when I came back from the bathhouse, she was angry at me, and she's like, "What are you doing playing those pranks on me? That wasn't cool." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I was down there taking a shower." So, of course, we didn't believe each other at first. And I got up to go to the bathhouse later on in the night. And as soon as I unzipped my tent, I heard, "Hey, Janice," in my voice.
Whoa!
And I was like, "Nope." I zipped it back up, and I said that out loud. "Nope." I zipped it back up, and my buddy Brent just happened to be up, and he said, "I heard that." So we both,
Wow!
yeah, so we both heard it at the same time. So, yeah, and later after I've told this, apparently there's a phenomenon called a mimic that's out
Yeah.
there.
Hmm.
And so I don't exactly know what that is, but it wasn't the last time that that had happened, like around me. You know, when it happened again in North Georgia, where I was on expedition, and my buddy Paul heard "Hey Paul" in my voice come from behind an outhouse at a primitive campground. And he's like, "I'm not going behind an outhouse with you." But I was way gone, right?
Oh,
So again, I had to explain, hey, I wasn't anywhere near there, but there was multiple witnesses
man.
that heard that.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
mean,
go ahead.
that's something you hear in like haunted houses and stuff like that. You hear it's, it's happened in my house. It's happened to my wife where she's heard me call
Hmm.
her whilst I was at work. It
Right.
happened a few times. It really freaks her out, obviously. But do you think it's something to do with the Bigfoot? Because they do say that they can mimic,
Hmm. They
language.
can.
And do you think that's possible that it was something to do with
It's
that?
very possible. Very possible. Um, after three films, I'm really of the belief that Bigfoot have abilities that we don't.
Hmm.
And one of the things that spurred my second film is called Cryptic Expeditions, The Land Between the Lakes. I wanted to explore some of these oddities that we experienced when we were filming Booger. So I had contacted this guy named Trey Hudson, and he was, fairly well known in the just paranormal world. He started off as a ghost hunter, and um, he wrote a book called The Metal Project. And in that book, he describes a lot of the same things that we had experienced. And I was like, okay, wow, somebody else that is experiencing some of this stuff. So I got with Trey, and we filmed the first part of The Land Between the Lakes at the Meadow, and we started documenting a lot of the weird stuff that happens there. Um, my buddy Brent saw something during the making of The Land Between the Lakes, that really shook him to the core, right? Um, I was doing this thing called an Estes method. That's when you got this ghost box and you have them in your ears, and then you put on these earmuffs, the noise canceling earmuffs, and you put a blindfold on, so it eliminates uh, auditory and visual stimuli, and all you can hear is what's coming through the ghost box. Well, Trey was sitting asking me questions during this session. And of course, I was almost answering him, right? But I couldn't hear what Trey was saying. Uh, but the answers were almost as if they were like directly answering what Trey would say. And like all of the other times when you're out in the paranormal world, we had camera failure go on. And we're used to this, right? So Brent is, I was using a two camera system at the time, and both cameras went off at the exact same time, which is weird enough.
Hmm.
But anyway, we're used to that. So Brent goes over and he's like casually, getting the cameras back up as the session's going. And he happens to look up and he sees this dark figure behind me, like trying to lunge into me. It would lunge into me and then come back out, lunge into me and then come back out. And he had never seen anything like that before, right? So he rightly so, he gets freaked. He really freaked. As a matter of fact, it freaked him out so bad he will not go back to the meadow. Absolutely will not go back there. Um, and in The Land Between the Lakes, we catch a little bit of it. You can see over my right shoulder. There was a part in the film or during that Estes method where I say stop, just stop. And over my right shoulder, you can see this little shadow thing. And everybody was accounted for. Everybody was. So you can see part of it there.
Was it like the
Walking.
shape of a man, like the shape of a person, or?
It's not that definitive. It goes in between behind me and a vehicle that's behind there. It just makes a shadow between us and that vehicle, right? More between me and that vehicle. And nobody else was walking around or anything to cast a shadow. So we catch a small glimpse of it. And it's right then when the cameras like have to do their malfunctioning thing. So uh, are they are they connected? I don't know, maybe, but it sure is coincidental, right?
I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Since doing this podcast, you
Right,
hear too many, man.
right, right. So it's another weird thing that we had experienced there, and I myself saw my first shadow person there. So whatever was hanging out over at the meadow, I don't know what it was, but to me it wasn't Bigfoot. It was something else.
Hmm.
Um, and then we travel on to the land between the lakes. And there I meet like Martin Groves and Adam Davies. Adam Davis catches up with us, and he joins the film there. There's quite a large cast and involved in at the Land Between the Lakes while we're there. So the 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 first night we're there, I'm not filming because I just got there, had to unpack. I'm tired. I don't want to film. We just go out to just explore, right? So we go to the cemetery and we're seeing these orbs. We're orb watching. Cool, And there's a large group of us there. I mean, there's probably 12, 15 people there. And I see this light, this color of light that I've not seen before. It was kind of a yellowish looking amber light. Okay, like almost like daylight, like a ray of sun coming out. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. I've not seen that color before, but I couldn't see the source of it. And I had to maneuver around to where I could see the source of this light and eventually do see the source of it. Well, it's not an orb, it's a portal. It's this very window looking thing. It's very, looks like a window. And I'm sitting there in awe, like, am I really seeing this? And everybody's got all these orbs and stuff going on all around us and stuff. And I'm sitting here just fixated on this portal. It's me and this other lady. Her name's Kathy. Uh, I don't know if she saw the light from it. I don't know if she joined where you could see it. It was very two-dimensional. If you were looking at it from an askew angle, you couldn't see it. You couldn't see into it. Um, you had to be more 90 degrees to it to really be able to see into this portal. Now, where we were was in early March, so there was still no foliage. It was very cold. Um, it was pitch black where we were in the middle of the night, but wherever I was looking at was daylight. Almost very lush, almost like a jungle. So you can imagine if you're like had a window in your house and on the other side of the window was a jungle. Well, that's what it looked like. It looked
Whoa.
like, it looked like a window and there's a jungle, right? And it was outlined with I don't know how to describe it, but there was this color that went around it, like it was bordered by some sort of by color, by the color light, the how to describe the amber color.
Hmm.
Anyway, somebody, like I said, there was lots of people there, and we were at a graveyard, and somebody had turned a flashlight down to where we were. And as soon as that flashlight hit it, boom, it was gone, just like that. Uh,
Wow.
and I was like, that really captivated my attention, right? Um, because during the making of or the filming of the Metal Project while we were there, we had interviewed Trey, and they had talked about this portal that two of their teammates had went in. And when they went into this portal, they had disappeared from FLIR, right? And what those two had reported seeing when they went into the portal was, of course, they were out in the woods. And then as soon as they walked in, everything became, it was like walking into a void. There was nothing there. It was just all black. And there was no foliage around. There was nothing. And they became a little bit concerned and then turned exactly opposite and headed back out. And then they started, walking back into the foliage and, eventually came out of that portal. Later on, both of them are no longer with us. So,
Mm.
that was in my
Man,
mind,
yeah.
right? So, a few minutes after that portal had disappeared, an orb started to it came up from exactly where that portal was. Okay, so and I'm telling all of these stories to kind of go back to where I'm still putting these pieces of a puzzle together. I'm still formulating an opinion about what these things are. Well, later on this trip, there's a Bigfoot encounter like no other encounter ever that's filmed. This is all on
He
camera.
got it on film.
Oh yes, oh yes. Okay. So of course, again, it's middle of the night. There's no moon, and there's quite a few people with us. There's another crew that was at another location at the cemetery that we went to. But immediately where I was, there was myself, Adam Davis, my filmmaker, my camera guy Brent, and a security guy. I'm going to call him Hamburger.
Great name. Great
That's
name.
yeah. He's former law enforcement,
Yeah.
so he doesn't like to get his name out because he's still
Yeah.
subject to being called back to some criminal cases.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway, uh, so we're some pretty big guys, right? We're not small. Um, and as soon as we get there, all four of us is kind of chatting and kind of laughing, and I'm getting the camera gear ready, right? And I hear this growl. And I can't reproduce it. It's a kind of a sound, but it's real guttural. You could feel it more than you could hear it. That's hard. That's hard to imagine, but this sound would really vibrated your insides. So you could feel it more than you could hear it. And at first I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Now I've heard and seen a lot at this time, so I'm not fazed by a whole lot anymore. So I'm still like, getting stuff together, and it does it again. And I'm like, hey, did you guys hear that? And about the time I said that, it does it again. But I mean, you could hear it much better, and it really rattled your insides. I would liken it to being next to mortar, and when the mortar goes off, you can feel it just
Hmm.
boom. That's what it felt like. And my camera guy goes nuts. He goes just berserk. It's like, oh my God, they're here. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. They're here. I'm like, dude, that's why we're here. That's why we're here. You know? And anyway, I literally have to grab him by the back of the coat because he is panicked. And I can understand why, but he's panicked. He's wanting to run. We're out in the middle of the woods. I don't know where he's going to run to, but that's a bad idea. I reckon that's a bad idea, right? So I grab him by the back of the coat, and this growling starts to ramp up. Just every few seconds, this thing's growling, and I'm like, this has got to be documented. So I'm hunting around for a camera, and I find a camera, and got him by one arm, and the camera's in the other arm, and I'm trying to get this camera on. It's dark, I can't see, and I kind of look up and I see it. It's standing in front of my truck. We're at the back of it, and it's standing in the front of it. I mean, literally standing right in front of my truck. And I could still, okay, now, uh, this GMC Chevy is about 6 foot off the ground, 2 meters off the ground, and I could still see from the bottom of its chest up,
Whoa,
And so I would,
man.
it's, 3 meters or 9 feet or taller, right? Easy, easy. And it's just standing there looking at me. And I'm like, and this was all in one weekend, right? And I'm kind of in shock a little bit. It seemed like forever. In reality, it was probably only a couple of seconds that I was in shock. But um, I hear the camera, when it starts up, it does this little whine, and I'm like, yes, I got it. So I look down to make sure that the night vision button was on. I had clicked it, right? And when I looked down, I made the rookie mistake of looking into the display screen. My night vision was shot after that. I couldn't see it anymore. So I'm sitting there and I got the camera up and I'm, trying to look through this little bitty display screen. And I've let go of Brent and Adam's military. Well, Adam was in the British military. Okay. And he's seen his share of, firefights and things like that. So his military training kicked in. So he wanted to kind of pull us together so that, we're not apart and easily picked off, right? So he gets Brent, and he's trying to calm Brent down while he doesn't know that I can see the thing at this point. But you can hear everybody else saying it's in front of the truck, it's in front of the truck. And, again, I don't know if it's in shock, but I don't say anything about it. But I'm trying to film it. I do get its eyes, that much is certain. But I don't know what happened to it right after that. No, the film, when it premiered in a theater here in Alabama, afterwards, I had several people come up to me and say, "Hey, when you initially saw that, started filming, um, the thing kind of ducked down in front of the truck and crawled away." Several people said they could see it crawling away. Now, I didn't see that because, you know, whatever, but more than one person has said they've seen it. But anyway, I've yet to
Interesting, man.
detect that. I've yet to detect that. But I will say that it's hard to go back and look at that footage because it generates, when you go through an encounter like that, you get like a PTSD from it.
Hmm.
And when you're watching it, you're almost like reliving it again. So evidence review on something like that is quite difficult for me anyway.
Hmm.
Um,
That gave me
anyway,
chills when you were sharing that, man. I got all goosebumps when you shared that. So imagine, like, I can't imagine seeing that. How scary that must be, you know?
oh, it was very shocking, because your paradigm shifts from if if these things could be real to there it is.
Hmm.
You know, it jumps off that storyboard right into your reality. It's real. It's there, right? Well, that's not the end of the encounter, though, brother. Okay, so Adam's military training kicks in. So he's like, okay, let's push this thing back into the woods. So we get together and we start like walking toward it. Okay, as we're walking toward where we think this thing is, it growls at us. Every time we take a step forward, it growls, just this intense growl. And we take a step forward, it growls. We kind of backtrack a little, and it's not like a tug of war. So eventually, it does go back into the woods, and when it goes back into the woods, its eye starts glowing. It matter. This is all on film now. This is all in the Land Between the Lakes film. It's all in there. So its eye starts glowing when it's into the woods, and so we're fixated on that. And then something starts throwing rocks at us from my left, and I said, "Hey, Adam." we got another one throwing rocks at us from the left. And then he immediately turns and looks at me and his eyes get huge. You know, he says, "Oh my God, they're flanking us." See? And he used it in the military term, right? And he said, and you can tell at that moment he changed a little bit because he underestimated him, you know. And he said, he's been in firefights and all this other stuff, and you're concerned for your life. But then he thought he wasn't going home that night because these things had successfully surrounded us. And they had shown that if they wanted to, they could have attacked us from the blind side if they wanted to. So,
Bro.
yeah. So this lasts for like, 25 minutes. And then, like always, you had battery failure on both cameras now about the same time, but we got a lot of good footage. So, they're putting things back, there's nothing else we can do really to film wise. So I'm like, I wonder if these things are still around. So I walk up to the front of the truck to see, one, to see if I could find any footprints. And it was kind of a gravelly road. You couldn't see any footprints. So I was like, wonder if it's still around. And I make a growl myself. I go, "Roar," kind of a good, loud growl. And he's walking up to the front of the truck to join me about that time. And then all of a sudden I heard boom, boom, boom. There was three stomps and immediate return to my growl. And Brent looks over at me and he's like, "Hey, it responded back to you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it again." So I growl again, and I do it even louder. And then again, immediately, boom, boom, boom. But it's right at the edge of the road. I mean, if I would have had a flashlight in my hand, I would have seen this thing, or that's what you would have thought, because it's
Mhm.
right at the edge of the road. Brett looks over at me, he's like, "Stop doing that shit." So I don't know what I'm saying to this thing, right? And I'm like, "Okay, Brent, I'm not armed, so let's go back where everybody else is. At least, if they come charging, I trip somebody else." So, you know, but that was an amazing encounter.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely amazing. But
Whoa, man. When the eyes started glowing, what color did they glow?
they're red. They're red.
They went red. Oh,
Yeah, they're red. An amber red sort of.
yeah.
Yeah,
Bro.
yeah,
Did you
absolutely.
get a look at could you see any facial features? I know it's difficult in that
I couldn't
moment.
see the facial feature because there was no moon, no moon, and everything what we do is authentic. We don't try to cast flashlights out or anything like that. We know that when you do that, you don't get any activity, right? There's a lot of shows out there that will fake things, and I'm not about to do that.
Hmm.
So the only way that I know of to get that authentic activity is to go lights out and present yourself as they present themselves.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
so
Absolutely.
I could see the silhouette of it. Great. I mean, you could even see the hair on it.
Hmm.
So I could see some details, but I couldn't see the face. And I think another part of that reason was I think it was black, like jet black. So I couldn't, I just couldn't see the facial features, which may be a good thing. I might not, I have more nightmares than I do now.
Yeah.
But
Man.
yeah, so that was an encounter that lasted quite a while, and it's all on video. It's all there, and you could hear the growls. We recorded these growls. I mean, these growls came through, and you can actually hear them. You know, so it's
Bro.
so if you do watch that film, I do recommend either headphones or something where it's got some big bass
Hmm.
because this happened in the theater. We're sitting there watching in the theater at its premiere, And during one of those scenes, there's one specific growl that is so loud, the whole audience just in unison went, they gasped all at one time. So it even
Man.
triggered the audience's primal fears in the audience. So
Wow. Where where
even
can
through video.
where can you see this now? Where is this on
It's
Amazon or?
it's in quality control in for the at the film distributor.
Hmm.
So once it goes through quality control, it'll be distributed to Amazon and Tubi and all the other
Oh,
platforms.
yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see that, man.
Yeah, the Downey Booger is already on Tubi and all those other ones. You can see it.
Hmm.
Now, there's a good authentic encounter in there, with the crawler. That's on
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
That's on video, so you can see all of it, and you can see that orb. But one of the things that we had filmed while at the LBL was these orbs, and we had a long encounter with those orbs. You know, for whatever reason, my editor chose not to put that encounter into the LBL. I don't know why. It's a good encounter. But while we were in our third film, The Vanished, um, it kind of focuses in on missing people that's in the national forests. So we kind of it centers in on two in particular. There's two I guess rather famous or infamous cases. One's Dennis Martin, the other one's Mike Huron. Now they disappeared decades apart, but um, the circumstances around their disappearances was eerily similar in the fact that no evidence whatsoever was gathered after they disappeared. Nothing was found. No clothing, no nothing. And that's very strange.
Hmm.
Um, so, but they happened in a geographically close area, right? And in this geographically close area, there's a lot of people that has gone missing, that has disappeared. Now, we didn't really want to uh, take away from the other people that had disappeared in those areas. It's just for the sake of a film, you have to settle in on something, right? So there's others that had disappeared there. So there's all kinds of theories out there from the mundane. We went through a lot of the mundane, whether it be kidnapping or um, they fell into a cave or something like that. You would think if any of those, particularly the cadaver dogs, would have found them uh, if they were there. Well, the cadaver dogs in both instances couldn't find anything, right? So uh, there was massive manhunts for both of them. For Dennis Martin, he had disappeared in 1969, and he was just a little boy. He was 6, 7 years old when he had disappeared, and the manhunt for this young fellow was enormous. There was over 2,000 people a day involved. Every branch of the military was involved, which is very unusual itself because our military really doesn't search for missing people. That's not their role. Their role is to go kill people and break things.
Hmm.
Uh, but in this instance, they happened to be training not too far away, and the forest ranger, the head forest ranger there, was successful in garnering their help to look for this little kid, right? So the manhunt was absolutely massive, and they found nothing, absolutely nothing.
Man.
Same thing for Mike Huron. He disappeared in 2008. Absolutely a huge manhunt for both of them. Nothing, nothing was found. So um, after we sort of explore um, the mundane, we're like, okay, well, what about these other questions that need to be answered? What if it was something else? Because there's been Bigfoot in this particular area in the Smoky Mountains. It's very well known for Bigfoot. And it's well known for this other phenomenon called feral people, yeah, which is it's as it's described, it's people that's just gone wild, right? They don't have they're raised in the wild and they have no contact with with uh, with society at all. So they kind of live like cave people or cavemen. Anyway, so there's both of those phenomena that we're trying to explore. And one particular night we're exploring, and we lots of weird things happen. First, these metallic noises. We start hearing these metallic noises. It kind of sounds like a tapping, tap, tap, tap. Um, However, when you're there, it almost sounds like a metal door closing. So it's really weird. It's hard to explain. So we do catch that on audio. And we see orbs. And we catch something on film that is not really it glows, right? But it doesn't act like an orb normally does. It's there for a second and we see it. My camera guy goes, "Oh, what are you?" And you can see it kind of it doesn't have a shape to it. It's not a ball or anything, and it's just weird shape, and it kind of morphs around and shoots away, right? And we're like, what the heck was that? Um, I've seen orbs, and this really didn't act like an orb, although it had some glowing. It was a glowing phenomena. It was a luminous phenomena. I wanted to explore more about what that could be, and I got into the folklore of the Cherokee Indians that used to inhabit that area. Well, what a coinkydink that there is this old Cherokee folklore of this thing called the Raven Mocker, and it fit exactly what we had experienced. And the way the Raven Mocker was explained to us was that it's essentially an energy vampire. It shows up and uh, by tradition, it takes what's left of your life force so it can live longer. However, once it's noticed, it flees, and according to their tradition, it dies. But um, that's tradition. You really don't know whether it dies or not. However, it acted exactly like what we had experienced when we were there.
Whoa. Do you think that would like try and attach to you or something?
We think that it definitely was trying to do something because my camera guy, Jim, he, uh, have you ever heard of this? When people go out, they get sick and nauseated, and
Yeah,
they have these weird feelings come on them. Well, that happened to him when he was out there, right? And we
man.
didn't get this on camera because he was the camera guy. He was sick and he had to lay down for a few minutes, and then after that, he felt a little better. Then he started getting up doing his job, but he was the one that noticed the luminous phenomena. So the question comes to mind, was it trying to go for him? Right? Uh,
Interesting.
yeah. And this other thought comes to mind when we were completed this film. What if this is a real phenomenon? This, call it the Raven Mocker. What if it's a real phenomenon and it really hunts people? It really does, and that accounts for some of these missing people.
Yeah.
And you know what what if just by knowledge of this thing, if you can prepare yourself, maybe you can defend yourself somewhat.
Hmm.
like we did when we were there, just by noticing.
If you're aware that the possibilities out there that there could be something like that coming for you,
Right,
you
right.
can, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're aware
Whoa.
and you're aware of that possibility,
Hmm.
could you defend yourself from it? Because if you're aware of that possibility, your head might be on more of a swivel and you might look for these things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we think that even though we couldn't prove anything conclusively about what happened to these two subjects, I do think that we found a possibility that we can throw into the hat of what happened to these two and what happened to others that's come up missing in these areas.
Yeah. Well, so many
So,
people in America go missing in the national forest. It's a high number. I'm not sure the actual number, but I know it's a high number. And obviously, some of these accounts are going to be natural causes, and we're going to find the answers. But as you say, these people just vanish into thin air, and there's no evidence whatsoever, which is very strange. Especially as you were saying with the manhunt that they were going, you would have thought they'd find something, a shoe, a bit of
mhm,
clothing, something, and they
mhm,
don't. And that's very strange, man.
mhm.
So,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I did deploy uh, an unusual tactic in our investigation. I brought in a couple of remote viewers. Interesting thing about the remote viewers, and I'm not going to give away the conclusions to it, but they both had the exact same, well, I'll say almost almost the exact same conclusions about what happened to Dennis Martin.
interesting.
hmm So their accuracy was uncanny, and they didn't know anything about the case before. They didn't know what they were looking at.
Whoa. And they never talk to each other, so they're not.
No, they didn't talk to each other.
Whoa.
They still to this day don't even know each other.
Wow.
hmm
You have to watch a documentary to find the answer to that.
You do, you really
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, I don't want to give that away, and it's
yeah,
also in QC,
yeah.
control.
That's
So
cool. Yeah,
that
man.
takes a little bit for it to get through that process, but
Wow. I mean,
good assume.
the metal gates that you heard. Some people equate
Mhm.
that to portals opening in the forest. You've heard that for
Absolutely.
sure. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. There's this researcher here. It's the late Scott Carpenter. Uh, he was famous for putting a camera on the back, pointing backwards, and he filmed as he was walking away. What's behind him, and in one of those instances, he filmed this portal that what looks like a portal. It's this round thing that started forming as he was walking away, and you could sort of see this entity that sort of right at the edge of that portal thing. It's just kind of like it's like sitting or crouching or something. And he talks about it in detail, and you can see this thing pretty good. Well, we happen to know exactly where that was, and we went there. So, and when we had those encounters there,
Wow, that's where it was, the same place.
same place,
Whoa.
same place. hmm I'm not going
Man.
to divulge where it is, but it's same
Interesting.
place. Same place.
Wow.
Hmm
Man, this world is so much more wild than people think it is, you know?
You know, it is. And again, I'm going to come back to this puzzle that I kept that I keep putting together, and I've come to this theory. I'm going to call it a theory about Bigfoot. Um, you know, a lot of people say, or a lot of the skeptics say, "Oh, you don't find a body, you don't." Uh, there's a lot of physical evidence that is not here for us to examine, right? And um, and I go back to the first film where we found footprints that just stopped in the middle of nowhere. Um, I go back to the Metal Project where they they've got on footage these people who walk into an orb, walk into a portal, they disappear from FLIR, but later on they're no longer with us. Okay, so portals are bad for your health.
Hmm.
Um, I also go back to the orb that was behind the crawler during the making of the booger. And it was seemingly assisting the Bigfoot from, trying to get away as it got away. I saw the portal at the Land Between the Lakes myself. I saw an orb come up from where that portal was. We physically hear these Bigfoots, and I actually do see the one. However, there's other circumstances where you would think you could see these things, but you can't see them. Okay. I've come to the conclusion that they're not from here. They're they're multidimensional creatures, beings rather, and they can phase in and out of our existence or come to a portal or whatever, but they have to traverse these portals in energy form, in an orb form. So I think some of these orbs, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, are the actual Bigfoots that they go to wherever they're from.
Hmm.
And they traverse these portals in energy form because it's not good for organic material. So,
Interesting, man. It makes a lot of sense why we can't catch up to these creatures. There's so much physical evidence, and then all of a sudden, like you said, with the footprints, it's gone. And where are they
yeah,
gone?
yeah,
They don't just,
right. And
how?
yeah, I'm not saying that theory is right. I'm just saying, because you can, when you're putting together pieces of a puzzle, some of these things, you can make them fit where they really don't fit. However, you know, that's where the evidence has led me to
Hmm.
this point. And I'm not afraid to say, hey, that's the evidence that has come before me.
Hmm.
And that's my conclusions so far. I think if it would have been some sort of wood ape or something like that, it would have messed up. And, I'm pretty diligent when I go out and research. And uh, where these things were around, I would have caught them, right?
Hmm.
I would have caught them. Because when you go out, you might go out 20 times. One of those 20 times you might have activity, right? So
Hmm.
that's just the way it goes. So I've been out a lot looking, a lot. And I think at some point between me and all the other researchers that are out there, there's a lot of good ones. There's a lot of really good researchers. We would have caught them somehow. We would have caught them.
Hmm.
So I think this multi-dimensional beings makes sense, and I don't think it's necessarily limited to Bigfoot.
I would agree, man. I think I'm in the
Mhm.
same. Well, my opinion changes every day. I talk to different people, as you can
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah.
Some people are like, these are just flesh and blood. Some people are like, these are interdimensional
Mhm.
beings. I think it could be a mixture of all these things. I really
Mhm.
do. That makes the most sense to me right now, is that these things aren't, there's a science to these creatures that we just don't understand, you
Yeah, we
know?
just don't understand it, right?
Because you're right, we would be able to, there would be more, surely there'd
Hmm.
be more evidence. I know that we do
Hmm.
have a lot of evidence, but you would have thought there'd be a lot more.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
yeah. You
interesting.
would think we'd have a body or something. Now,
Yeah.
I will say when they're in physical form here, yeah, they're flesh and blood. They're absolutely they eat, they breathe, they stink, all this, they're flesh and blood while they're here, but they just have an ability that we don't. They can,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you another story. While filming the Meta Project, one of these people that walked into that portal, um, had a report of two people that saw this, and they're both very credible people. They said one of the guy that this happened to, his name's Bob Wilson. People call him Grumpy. Um, But he was out in the meadow, and he himself turned into an orb, traversed about a couple of 100 meters, and then poof, he was back to material, like flesh and blood again. Now there was two witnesses that said he did that. From his perspective, he will argue, or he would have argued. He's no longer with us. He would have argued all day long that, oh, hell no, that didn't happen. That did not happen to me. From his perspective, he walked all of that. Okay. But from their perspective, they saw him turn into a red glowing orb, traverse several hundred meters in like 2 or 3 seconds. And then poof.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
That's
you know,
wild.
but if that would have been the first time I would have heard that, I would have been like, okay, yeah. What kind of meds have y'all taken? That was not the first time I'd heard that, though.
Hmm.
That was actually the third time I'd heard that.
Wow.
3 different encounters. So, or 3 different,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. So, I'm like, well, if one time could be one off, somebody that's, they're special. But 2 times is interesting. Three
Yeah,
times, you have to start paying attention to it.
absolutely.
So if we can do it as people, certainly uh, the Bigfoots or whatever may have that same ability.
Yeah.
So
Maybe if you walk
anyway,
into these portals, that is the form that we just
right,
take.
right. Well, it could be. It could very well be. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe he like walked into a portal and went zzz, 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 and that's where it exited, where he formed up. Very good possibility of that. I really think that there's a lot more to our universe than
Absolutely.
than we're told. Absolutely.
With the Scott Carpenter footage, when he caught an entity coming out of a portal, what did that? Can you remember what that looked like?
Yeah, it was kind of from memory, I think it was kind of a grayish, dark grayish, almost with a hint of green or whatever. Okay, and liken it to a rake. What a
Okay.
rake, what a rake would look like. It's what it looked like to me. As a matter of fact, though, we went back to the LBL back in November, and I was filming this group of girls, and what I told them to do was, hey, go in, be aggressive. Don't be passive. Be aggressive. Challenge whatever's there. And this was the exact place where I had the Bigfoot encounter, a year apart, right? So they're going in, they're being real aggressive, and you're hearing all this weird stuff going on. These pounding. I don't know what. I don't know how to describe it. It's a pounding. You can feel the ground move, just boom, boom. And one of the girls sees this oval looking portal open up. I didn't see it. She did because now I'm busy, filming the girls. I've got no night vision or anything. However, there was this, she said she saw these three, we're going to call them rakes because that's what they both look like. I mean, that's what all three of them look like.
Hmm.
She said she saw three of them come out of this little portal thing, and they're just kind of real low to the ground, crawling around. And, I'm sitting there filming the girls, and I happen to look up where she was talking about, and I see one charging us. And it's got these real spindly arms. It's kind of like galloping. It's wicked looking. I've been doing this a long time. It was the first time I've ever pulled my weapon out. I pulled my weapon out then because it was so startling and it was so close and it was so fast. I was like, oh God, there it is. And pulled my weapon out. And at some point I'm changing hands because I'm trying, I had the camera in this hand and I'm changing hands. So I still haven't gone over that footage. Really interested to see, but, um, pull my weapon out, and Natalie sees it charging us. Natalie's in our film group now, Natalie Spearman, and she hits it with bear spray. She pulls out bear spray. She nails it with the bear spray, and it does it effect. It stops it from charging. I don't know what happens to it after that, um, but bear spray lingers. It really lingers, and it's very effective. So we had to evacuate. But that was again another very extreme encounter, an interesting encounter. So, but it also had to do with a portal. So,
Man, did you get a look at the face of that creature?
um, I don't remember. Of course, again, it's dark.
Hmm.
Um, I'm wanting to say yes, but I don't. I would have to really, really sit back and think and meditate on it and try
Hmm.
to pull that memory out because w- apparently when I go through something that's extremely stressful, I try to forget about it. I push it to the side
Hmm.
and um, yeah, I guess it's a coping mechanism for me. Um, so I can't answer that question honestly, but I want to say yes. I want to say that I did see like something in the face, but I'm going to say I can't answer that right
Hmm.
now,
Hmm. Hmm.
to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
it's quite
But
a common.
I would have to sit and just meditate on it.
Yeah, these experiences are they're wild. They blow your mind, and it's difficult.
Mm,
It's quite a
it
common
is.
mechanism that people do that, and they put these memories to the back of your mind. You hear that a lot, man.
Okay. Well, at least I know it's how I have to deal with it.
Hmm.
Um, when we came back, I was done a little teaser for it, Return to the LVL, and that's on YouTube, and it's interesting.
Hmm.
Um, while I was doing that teaser, I got to that situation, and I had to I couldn't really edit that part, you know. Um, I, I had to do it extremely quickly, and the quality on it was not what I would want it to be because I couldn't deal with it. I have to kind of separate myself from it. I couldn't watch it again. So that's again another mechanism that I may actually have to end up farming that part of it out to another editor so
Hmm.
that they can do a good job versus me having to sit and deal with it and deal with it and deal with it. So that was the only time I've ever really been startled where like, hey, I've got to defend myself. The rest of
Hmm.
the times I've been, may have been startled, but not felt like I've ever had to defend myself.
Hmm.
That's the only time I've ever had felt like I've had to defend myself. But again, kind of going back to the portals, I think these other entities have the ability to come out of these portals, and it's not just limited to the Bigfoots.
Hmm.
So, and I think maybe that's what is that what ghosts are all about, or at least some of these ghosts, or some of this other paranormal stuff is all about. There's these, the veil is maybe thinning or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do know that it's happening more and more and
Absolutely. Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, whether you're out there looking for Bigfoot or you're in a haunted house investigating, it's very similar. Like a lot of what is happening is very similar. Orbs, the banging, the sensations,
more.
the feeling of getting, you said your cameraman that felt like he was getting attacked and sick. That happens
Hmm.
very often in paranormal investigations. The
Hmm.
links are there. It's very similar.
Hmm. Yeah, and when we went to return to the LVL, um, we were filming up in a graveyard right behind camp. Where we was at camp was very active. It's where I had actually chosen this. But we're filming a little clip back there, and I myself became, during this trip, it was twice I got hit with that, whatever it was. But I had gotten really sick, so sick that everybody else had to assist me getting back to the vehicle, right? At that exact same time, right down the hill from where we were, there was other people that was in the film, and one of them had this piece of equipment, and it was kind of like a safety equipment. It's I don't know what kind of detector you would actually call it, but it does catch things in the EMF range, and it detected a dangerous level of EMFs, and it had went off and was blaring at that exact same time when I had gotten sick. So we've got some physical scientific evidence of what some of this actually might be.
Hmm. Interesting, man.
Yeah,
Interesting stuff, brother. I know we're coming to the end of our time, but I just wanted to ask you before you started creating these films and really investigating, did you have any experiences that kind of
I
stand
did.
out?
I did.
Have we got
When I
time
was
for?
sure. When I was a child, uh, very young, 4 years old, maybe, give or take a year, uh, me, my two older brothers, two older cousins, we were on this uh, country road walking down to my grandmother's. And this big beam of light, it was dusky dark. It wasn't exactly dark yet, but it was dusky dark. This big beam of light came down on us. Boom. And I remember trying to look up to see the source of it. It's really, really bright. I can't see the source. And then looking down at my hands, and the light was, how to describe it. It wasn't white. It was kind of had a blue green looking tint to it. And I remember feeling with my little hands that I was like, I can feel it. It's like it was a tangible thing. You know, now what I would liken that to extreme static electricity, maybe how you like rub a balloon on your head in the winter and you can feel that static,
Hmm.
except maybe 1,000 times worse than that. You could feel this light, right? And that's what I remember there. My next memory is standing on my grandmother's porch. And I was thinking, how is the light still coming through the porch? Because it's a covered porch. Of course, it could have been just shining, reflecting back up from the ground, but whatever. I never saw the craft, um, but my oldest brother did, and it was a giant triangle, huge. But when the light, it didn't turn off, it lifted up. You could see this. It was like, again, it was like a curtain, it went, and of course, without the sound effects, but it lifted up, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, well, that's the weirdest light I've ever seen. But I remember being terrified, right? One of the main thing is I do not remember how we got from the middle of the road to my grandmother's house. And I was just talking about this over the weekend with my not the oldest brother, the middle brother. I'm the youngest. He has the same memory block, but and we were talking about this, and he was like, for the life of me, I can't remember how we got from the road to my grandmother's house, to Maul's house. Uh, and about a year or two ago, one of my aunts had passed away, and at her wake, I was talking to the older cousins and the rest of the family about it that had experienced that. And they all have the exact same memory gap. None of us remember how we got from the road to my grandmother's house. So, I don't know what that's about, but when we were at my grandmother's house, it was completely black, completely dark, very dark. Um, when the event started, it was dusky dark. When it stopped, it was completely dark. And there's no street lights. At the time, there wasn't any street lights or anything around. When it was dark, it was dark, out in the middle of the country, right? I mean, dark, dark, dark. So that much I do remember very clearly. And I don't know if we got in trouble for being gone too long or anything like that. I don't remember much about that afterwards, but I do remember number one, being terrified, and two, having a memory gap.
Wow.
So
So I mean, it sounds like an abduction.
I can't say for sure, but why else do we all have that memory gap?
Yeah. Wow,
Um,
man.
so I don't hunt aliens, not
Not yet.
that's one thing I haven't really done, It's, you
Man.
know, what happens when you find one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Bad things
Yeah.
can happen, right? Have to wear my iron breeches.
Yeah. Have you thought about regression or anything like that? Or would you not want to
Um,
know what happened?
well, on one of the teams that I go out with, we do have a psychologist, and he does regression. And he used to work for the National Security Agency and was in the military and all that. Most of the people that I hang out with were either intelligence officers or military, some sort of branch of the military or law enforcement, something of that effect. Um, so he used to deal with a lot of this classified stuff where regarding um, remote viewing. Um, so some of that has recently been declassified, and it's interesting when he talks about it because he was involved in some of that stuff.
Yeah.
So I haven't really pursued regression because part of me wants to know, and the other part says, okay, is it a good thing that I don't remember? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so to my knowledge, something like that hasn't happened again. Um, if it did, me and the little gray alien would, I'd have to whoop his ass or something. If I can, I'm gonna get some revenge if I see him
Yeah.
again. You
Absolutely,
know,
man.
absolutely. But
Brother.
yeah, so I have I have had encounters like when, starting from when I was a little kid. And, one of the other times, and I didn't even know anything about Bigfoot at the time, but in this very same place where my grandmother lived, it had snowed, and my middle brother and I had found some footprints that came out of the woods to one of my cousin's window. It stopped there for a minute and then went back into the woods, and it had three toes. Um, so that was interesting because I distinctly remember sitting there looking at those footprints and saying, "It's got three toes. What's that about? It's only had three toes." So
Interesting.
that was interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't see anything other than the footprints, but
Can you remember
um,
how big they were roughly? I know that's difficult because you know.
they weren't remarkably giant. I would say probably 12 to 14 inches. It wasn't like a Bigfoot,
Hmm.
where you get 16-inch prints. It wasn't like that. But I do remember the three toes. That was so weird. So weird.
Whoa, man. Could that have been
Yeah.
one of the feral dudes you were saying about in into the
You
Smoky
know,
Mountains?
I
Possibly.
would hate, I would hate to see how that person came about. I know we're here in the South, and there's a tradition of going to a family reunion to get a wife, to find your next
Yeah,
wife. You know,
can't rule it
so
out. Yeah,
yeah, so I hope our feral people aren't contributing to the stereotype
yeah,
here.
yeah. You do get reports of creatures with three toes. I've
Yeah,
heard that. I've
yeah,
heard that.
yeah.
It is interesting, man.
Yeah, so that did happen. I haven't seen that since then. But we are in the same. There's this cryptid called the Alabama White Fang, and we are, where this happened is very close to where the White Fang has been seen. So
Interesting. What is
you know,
the white thing? What is that?
it's a
Is that
white Bigfoot essentially.
okay?
So, yeah, just a white Bigfoot.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think there's just more out there than what meets the eye. I
Absolutely.
think there's more to Bigfoot than you really think. I think they're very intelligent beings,
Hmm.
extremely intelligent. Um, and as much as I have talked in this session, I've only really scratched the surface of the encounters that we've had, and the
Man,
experiments that we've done. There's been times where we're going out and there's been healing sessions. There's been sessions where There's been missing time. There's been sessions where you actually have verbal communication of some sort. Um, so there's all sorts of encounters that we've had that I haven't touched on yet. So I'm just kind of
Man, you know what that
giving you
means?
the overlay.
We've got to do another one,
Yeah,
as long as you're happy.
yeah. When I go into some of these deep dives on some of these experiments that we've done, you know, it's it's really important to set up the setting
Hmm.
because that the setting is everything. When you go out to these places, you with the set. What I mean by the setting is your intentions, your the way you set things up
Hmm.
uh, matters. It matters.
Hmm.
Uh, so a lot of the people that just go out to the woods and do, you're not going to see anything because you didn't
Hmm.
set it up right. Your
Interesting.
settings aren't your settings aren't correct.
And is that intention as well, as you say? Like, is like
Yes.
your, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Intention is everything. So what I do, and I'll go out and I'll meditate before I go out. And I'll reach out to whatever's there. And it's like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm filming. We're not here to hurt you. If you want to come out and hang out with us, please do. I do a lot of that.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes you get these thoughts in your head that you're like, hey, where'd that come from? It's like where to go. It tells you where to go, right? Um,
Oh,
that's happened. Oh, as a matter of fact, that happened with when we in the booger, the last scene where we caught the orb and the thing in the crawler.
hmm.
That's what precipitated that. It was a meditation and say, go here. So,
Wow.
um, when I come back to you again, I'll go over some of those protocols
Yeah,
that
we've
I do.
we've got to do this soon, man.
Yeah,
We've got to
yeah,
do this
yeah,
soon.
yeah.
Fascinating stuff, brother.
Hmm.
Man, thank you so much for your time tonight, man. It's been super interesting.
Thank you. And again, all of the stuff that I've talked about, go see the films. See the films. It's all there.
We've got to see
It's
the
all
films.
there.
I need to see all of them. Where's the best place to see them now? I know some are still coming. They're not
They're
out
still
yet,
coming
but
in.
where's the best place to go right now to see
Okay.
what is available?
Yeah. The Legend of the Downey Booger is on Tubi. You can find it. You can watch it free. Um, Used to be able to watch The Land Between the Lakes on my Patreon page. I've since moved away from the Patreon. If somebody wants a physical copy of it, they can contact me and I'll mail them a physical copy of it. Um, but right now, it's still in quality control with the distribution companies. And then once it goes through that, it'll be distributed to all the streaming platforms where you'll be able to watch it.
Awesome, man.
And that goes for the next two films, The Land Between the Lakes and The Vanished.
Awesome. Awesome stuff, brother. Well, I see why at the start you said you're a Noah. I can see why now. Uh,
I'm a knower, 100%.
so interesting. Thank you so much for your time, man, and going into so much detail and sharing so much cool stuff. That's super interesting stuff, man. Excited to do it again soon, brother. I'll send you some more dates and hopefully we
Thank
can do
you.
this very soon. Guys need to go and check out the film now, and the films that are coming we're very excited for as well. So
Thank
thank
you
you
for
very
having me.
much, bro. It's been a pleasure. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, share it where you can. That is a great way to support the podcast, and we'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.